This program is brought to you by Real Estimate. Get a free real estimate of your home's value today on the realestate.com.au app.
Welcome back. Across Australia, there were more than 2,000 auctions held over the past week with a clearance rate of about 62%. Sydney held 890 auctions with a clearance rate of about 57%. Melbourne held 1,009 auctions with a clearance rate of 70.5%. Brisbane held 78 auctions, clearance rate there of roughly 55%. Adelaide held 64 auctions, a clearance rate of roughly 64% in Adelaide. Canberra held 73 auctions with a clearance rate of 57.5%. Perth held 4 auctions with half of them selling. And Darwin also held 4 auctions with a clearance rate of 50%. Well, join me now is Eleanor Creagh, Senior Economist at REA Group. Eleanor, just looking at those auction clearance rates there, some pretty strong results across the country, particularly Melbourne, upwards of 70% clearance rate.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. We're seeing that auction volumes are a little bit higher than this same time last year as well. So clearance rates really reflecting, I guess, the renewed momentum that we're seeing in market conditions with interest rates falling in February and again in May. Really seeing home price growth reaccelerate across the capital city markets and broaden as well across the capital cities. So housing market conditions remaining relatively buoyant despite the fact that we're heading into I guess that seasonally quieter time of year.
Yeah, you've released your property price report today, just showing prices during May hit a new record. I mean, where around the country is doing the best right now?
So there's still a little bit of a divergence on where's doing best, depending on whether you're comparing growth over the past quarter or past month versus growth over the past year. So over the past year, the top performers are still very much those front runners that have been the same for the past couple of years. So Adelaide, Perth and Brisbane. Home prices in Adelaide up around 11% over the past year, and in Perth and Brisbane just a little over 8%. Whereas if we're looking at where home price growth has reaccelerated most over the past quarter or so, as interest rates have moved lower in February and May, it's Melbourne, it's Canberra, Sydney as well, seeing that growth momentum continue too with interest rates moving lower this year. So Melbourne actually leading monthly home price growth in May, with prices lifting 0.8% in May in Melbourne.
Yeah, just looking at Melbourne, when you see the median price now in Melbourne during May, it's actually more affordable than quite a few other capital cities around Australia. It seems like an astonishing statistic.
Yeah, so despite Melbourne seeing that largest monthly rise in May, and despite the turnaround in market conditions in Melbourne, we do know that over really the past 5 years, conditions in Melbourne have been soft relative to other capital city markets. Home prices in Melbourne are up actually a little under 20% over the past 5 years, whereas when you compare to some of those capital city markets where the median value of homes has overtaken Melbourne, like Perth, Adelaide and Brisbane, prices are up around 90% over the past 5 years. So actually in May, we saw that Perth's median home value overtook Melbourne's for the first time in around a decade, with that strong performance in Perth over the past 5 years versus that weaker performance in Melbourne, contributing to Perth home values overtaking Melbourne's now.
Yeah, we've certainly seen some incredible price growth in Perth, but what about regional parts of Australia? How have they been tracking?
Now, regional areas saw home prices lift in May, so very much like the capital cities, a relatively coordinated upswing across the regional areas in May as well. We are still seeing that when we look at combined regional markets, they have outperformed over the past year, with growth in the combined capital cities sitting at around 3.7% over the past year compared to regional areas, growth sitting around a little over 5% over the past year.
And if we see the Reserve Bank cut rates potentially once or 2 more times this year, could we expect prices to lift even more?
Now, we're expecting that prices are going to continue to lift throughout the remainder of 2025, although we know affordability is still pretty stretched. Lower interest rates have lifted borrowing capacities, boosted by sentiment. And I think, of course, with the expectation of continued price rises and interest rates continuing to move lower, many of those prospective buyers waiting on the sidelines will be pulling forward their purchase decisions. At the same time, we know we have that chronic shortage in the delivery or constraints in the delivery of new homes, which is another factor underpinning or putting a floor under prices.
Eleanor, Creagh, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.